In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Justin Melbartis, Lizzy Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome, all you lords, ladies, and knights, to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Ms. Lizzy Haynes from the bluegrass state of Kentucky. How are you doing, sis?
I am doing great. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. I'm excited for our guest, and I'm excited for our movie. It's a great night to podcast.
I'm excited for this guest, too. Coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, first-time guest, Miss Ghosh. How you doing?
I am doing well here in Hotlanta. People from Atlanta don't say Hotlanta, so maybe I should rewind. Blah, blah, blah.
Is it just
Yes,
warm
Atlanta.
Atlanta? Is it just warm Atlanta because it's fall?
It's right now. It's still tepid. I would say it's tepid Atlanta.
Tepid Atlanta
right now.
Temperate Atlanta.
Yep. Pretty good climate.
Now, Allie, I hear you like movies, but I also hear you like TV, and maybe you and Lizzy both like a certain scary TV program that's retro in its own right. Do you want to tell us about a certain project that you may have coming out soon?
Yeah. So, Lizzy and we roll deep. We are good friends, and we share a love of a lot of things. And randomly one day, I don't even know how we started talking about it, Lizzy, but we started talking about the 1990s Snick. If you guys remember Snick, Saturday Night Nick, the show Are You Afraid of the Dark, which came out in like 1992. And in our discussions about it, Are You Afraid of the Dark is a show that a lot of people remember, but like if we think about it these days, like Lizzy was a little bit younger than me. I'm the elder of the group of podcasters, so I was 6 when the show came out, and I'm still like, why did my mom let me watch this before I went to sleep? Like it's a little scary, but yeah, we watch the podcast every week. We're doing it in order. So you get to see the show evolve. You get to see the Midnight Society evolve, and you'll get to see us as podcast hosts stumble through it and hopefully evolve to be much better.
It took me a while to be able to brave the show. I would watch all that, and then I would chicken out.
All that would go off, and then the attic shot would come in, and the doors banging and stuff. And I remember
and walked away. I did.
I remember my pulse like picking up, and my sister was 9 at the time, and she was like, "Stop being such a baby." And I'm like, I literally am a baby. I'm 6, so like, back off, bro.
I like to imagine that she still sounds like that. So
she actually does. I hope she listens to this.
The intro is the scariest part of the show by far. So if you can just survive the introduction, then after that, like, you're golden. Like, you can pretty much just get, I mean, maybe if you're 6, not so much, but for like a 9-10-year-old, it's the intro that'll get you.
Yeah. And I think what we're realizing as we watch the show back is none of this would happen in 2023. Because
100%.
Episode 1, as an example, 2 kids get lost in the woods. All they have is a map. They go hiking in the woods with just a map. They don't have their phone. They don't have a cell phone. They don't have, Google Maps pulled up. And
they
now
don't have a friendly snowman singing "Lost in the Woods" with them.
They don't.
Right.
No. And so, a lot of the problems in the show just wouldn't happen today. So it's really interesting to see. Like, what now I think all of the shows would have to be, the episodes would have to be like rooted in technology or something, because it's like an anti-technology show. And you can tell that from the cinematography and the editing. But also, I'm just kidding. But yeah, great bad acting, great writing. So yeah, movies. I can do a movie once in a while, which I've done for you guys. But yes, TV. Listen to the podcast, Pod You Afraid of the Dark. It's me, Lizzy, and our friend Leah. We have a good time. And hope you have a good time listening to us. Yeah.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Podcast providers near you.
So. Yes.
Now, We're doing a funny movie today. It's, we're shaking off the creeps and the chills and the spooky stuff here. Now we're doing something funny today. Allie, who's your
Yes.
favorite comedic actress?
Like retro or modern day?
You can go either.
Okay. So modern day, I think the work of Amy Schumer in the movie Trainwreck is impeccable.
Yes.
So many good lines. Like when she's running on that treadmill and then she's like, I haven't eaten anything today except for a bag of chips and a yogurt and some Chipotle. And he goes, so you basically had 2 meals and a snack. And she's like, yeah, but they were really small. Like great acting. When I think back to the 90s, a lot of people stand out, not necessarily for comedy. I think that like female comedians definitely came more into the forefront, like as Tina Fey and Amy Poehler came on to Saturday Night Live back in the 90s, early 2000s. But the rom-com, the second word is comedy. And so
That's right.
going into you can't have it without comedy, going into it. And one of the reasons I picked this movie is because the acting chops of Sandra Bullock. She's a genius. While You Were Sleeping, great film. This one, great film. The one we're talking about today. The sequel to the one we're talking about today, but like a lot of range.
Really bad.
A lot of range. But yeah, Sandra Bullock is one that definitely stands out from like a retro perspective for sure. And that's not even like retro. 1990 was what, 20 years ago? 2000?
We call it 10 years. We call it 10 years ago and before. But
I know. I'm just kidding. In my mind, 1990 will always be 10 years ago, even though it was
I know.
3 years ago.
It's a little farther than that at this point. What about you, Lizzy? What is a comedic actress that you connect with?
I put Katherine Hahn because she
one.
is like, I absolutely love her. She does the best in the supporting roles. So like in Step Brothers or We Are the Millers, she always is like that goofy character that just makes a cameo. And I love her. She warms my spirit. She always can make me smile. And honestly, just like when she is on the screen, I'm having fun. I love her.
That's a great choice. I like, so for my choice here, I'm going to go with Ms. Melissa McCarthy. She is.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a great one.
She is a force, and I love it. She takes over. I mean, I remember I didn't really watch her TV show, Mike and Molly, right?
Yes.
So, Bridesmaids, I went in not knowing who she was, and she just stole the show for me. She was so hilarious in that. Just all the dogs she had. Like the aggression in her work on Saturday Night Live is outstanding when she goes on there. I mean, she can take a movie that I think is a total dud and turn it into something I'm willing to like watch. I mean, like that's like people like Jim Carrey and her can turn a total loser of a movie into something that's like, hey, all right, congratulations, you saved it. It's now an all right movie. Like I didn't say it was great, but that takes a lot of talent to turn F material into, even C+ material. And when she's on fire and has the right material, it's just amazing. So, Allie, what is the last movie you saw? Doesn't have to be in the theaters. It doesn't have to be retro.
Oh my gosh. This is going to be so embarrassing because, like, you want the honest answer?
Yes.
Yes. The more embarrassing, the better.
Okay. So, like, again, I'm a creature of habit. I watch the same things over and over. I watched the Pride and Prejudice movie with Keira Knightley an embarrassing amount of times.
I love that movie so much.
I probably watched it twice in the last month.
Then you'll have to teach us. I've never seen this movie, so you'll have to. For a movie fan, I'm a terrible movie.
Watch it.
The guy from Succession, he's in it. He's Mr. Darcy.
Yes.
It's just like the language, and they have balls and like
You
cooks and like the weird cousin. Yes. But I watch that movie all the time. Last movie in the theater was I saw Oppenheimer, but that was the last movie I'd seen in the theater since 2018.
And it had neither prejudice nor pride in it, so it's not.
No, Oppenheimer was just loud and had tense music the whole time. I think that's why I've gone back into my hidey hole of Jane Austen, because Oppenheimer was pretty intense. Yeah. But yeah, Pride and Prejudice, but the Keira Knightley one, not the
BBC.
What's that? Not the BBC
Colin Firth, yeah.
Colin Firth. He is not Mr. Darcy.
You can tell I'm a Pride and Prejudice fan, but the Keira Knightley one, I'm on board. Is
Oh, when he's
Dark
walking through
Knight.
that field at the end, like 10 out of 10.
Lizzy, how about you? What's the last movie you saw?
Ghost with Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg. But it was kind of the first intro to spooky season. I say spooky season because I specifically remember having the gnarliest nightmares at those really creepy kind of demonic creatures that kind of come into the fold a couple of times without spoiling anything on who they come for. But the sounds that they make, and even watching it with Aaron, we still were just like, that's pretty scary. And
talk about rom-coms. That's a rom scare, maybe.
It's a rom scare, cozy horror for sure. It's a great movie. If anyone hasn't checked that movie out, it's an absolute classic.
I smell a crossover effort coming on, if I'm not mistaken. So you'll be talking about ghosts on another friend of the show's podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
I sure will. And I'm very, very excited to talk all things Ghost. It's going to be amazing.
And this is the Retro Made podcast, right?
Retro Made. Definitely check that out. Our host of Retro Made, Kate, came on to talk about Mystic Pizza on this podcast. And so Chad and I are going to talk all things Ghost over on hers, and it is going to be fun.
Pizza goes great with Ghost, I think. So that's a great follow-up.
That's
all right. Now, my last movie that I saw was a newer movie. It is the 2023 version of The Flash with Ezra Miller in it.
Oh, nice.
And it has Michael Keaton Batman, and that is fun for me. So I like Michael Keaton Batman a whole lot. So
Michael Keaton's definitely one of those that I would have had to Google, is Michael Keaton still alive? So thank you.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to.
Yeah, and he's Batman, and he'll let you know. So I mean,
and he was Birdman, right? Isn't that what he's saying?
Yeah.
Is he your
he's
Batman?
Beetlejuice. Yeah, I mean, he's an icon. I mean, love that guy.
He's an aviary icon for sure.
But is he your Batman?
Definitely. Oh yeah, for sure.
Val Kilmer is mine, but my second place is Michael Keaton for sure.
Clooney? No Clooney?
No Clooney. Clooney is Christian Bale is probably my least favorite Batman.
Robert
Pattinson. I would say that
no one.
No, Robert Pattinson I'd like more than Christian Bale. I love the Christopher Nolan movies, but it just is him as Batman. He's my least favorite.
So it's an okay movie, but Michael Keaton Batman makes it even better than just okay. So that helped me out a lot. Now, what movie are we going to cover today, Allie?
So I think whenever Lizzy asked me to be on this podcast, she said, hey, we're going to do, the theme is like girl power movie.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I'm here.
I Russell bringing it. I think I texted her back in about 26 seconds, which is a world record for me. And I no doubt said Miss Congeniality, Sandra Bullock, Michael Caine, Benjamin Bratt, perfection. Amazing film. Yes, so Miss Congeniality, number 1, not number 2.
So this comes out in 2000. Miss Congeniality does. Its budget is $45 million, so it's a pretty hefty budget for a comedy.
Yeah, if you're getting Sandy in there, you need that money.
Yeah, but I mean, it grosses $106.8 million domestically alone. It comes in at 21st in the box office. It comes in just behind Chicken Run and ahead of Gone in 60 Seconds. So it does well at the box office. The number 1 movie in 2000 was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And IMDb gives Miss Congeniality a 6.3. The critics of Rotten Tomatoes, not as kind to it. They give it a 41%. The audience score likes it a little better. It's 69%. It is followed by Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous in 2005. And this is nominated for 2 Golden Globes, Best Actress for a Comedy or Musical to Miss Sandra Bullock, and Best Original Song in Motion Picture, Boston's 1 in a Million. And it is a Teen Choice Award winner, the prestigious Teen Choice Award winner for Best Teen Choice Award for movie comedy. So
grab that surfboard, right? Weren't they surfboards they gave out?
Yes.
Hey, not every movie has awards to its name, so you can take that 41%.
It's the most inconvenient award too.
Yeah, no, you can.
What am I going to do? Carry this carry a surfboard around all night? No.
Critics can take that 41% back to the bank with the Teen's Choice Awards. They set the record straight there. Now, Allie, I get the gist that you may have seen this one before. What was your introduction to the movie? What was your first time taking it in? What's it like coming back to it now?
So I was like asking my sister. 2000, I would have been how old? 16? No, I can't math. 14? 14. Yes, I was ripe age. And we saw it in the theater, I'm pretty sure. I was like, we went to go see this in theaters because my sister and I, growing up, had an obsession with beauty pageants, like sick obsession. There are millions of home videos of me crying because the person that I wanted to win didn't win beauty pageants.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that about
We
you. I
would
love that.
we'd take 50 Barbie dolls, write the state names on little pieces of tissue, cut the tissues and glue them on 50 Barbie dolls and play along with pageants. And we would record them and rewatch them and rewatch them. Maybe that's why I only watched Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, is because I only watched pageant reruns back in the late 80s, early 90s. But we loved pageants. And so it was right up our alley to go see a movie about a pageant. And
Wow.
10 out of 10 satisfied.
Okay. And so what's it like coming back to it now? You've gotten older, and is it still there for you in the same way?
Man, still slaps. And we'll talk about great lines, but there are some just great lines in there that I think have entered the zeitgeist of culture.
Yes.
You know, there are just so many iconic moments, and every time I see them, my heart still gets the little pitter pats. You know, I'm like,
Okay. Now, what about you, Lizzy? What was your background with this movie?
You know, I'm going to be totally honest. I cannot remember the first time that I saw it. I don't have as much of a vivid memory of the first time, but it's one of those movies that I've seen so many times and I love so much that it almost feels like it's that same sensation like when you meet somebody you've been friends with for a really long time and you're like, well, we've just always known each other. It feels like we've been friends forever. That's kind of my relationship with this movie. I think sometimes certain movies kind of just like hit the right spot for you and kind of become ingratiated in your overall personality. And I think this movie definitely did that for me. I can't remember a time where this wasn't a movie that I was obsessed with. I absolutely loved it. And I have not seen it in many years. It's a movie that I've not revisited. I have to imagine, in at least like 6 or 7 years, I haven't seen it. But I'm with Allie where like there's this closeness to it that I still feel even without watching it. And getting back to being able to watch it specifically for this podcast, I feel like everything held up. Like I watched most of it while I was on the treadmill at the gym and I'm like having like headphones in. I'm like bursting out loud with laughter with like people all around me. It is just, I enjoyed it just as much rewatching it now probably as I did the first time I saw it. Maybe even more now that some of the jokes I actually understand. So it was great. I loved it.
They both have this big beaming smile just even starting to talk about it. I love this enthusiasm for it. This is great. I had never seen Miss Congeniality before, so this is my first time ever.
Oh my God.
I know.
We took your V card, your Miss Congeniality V card. Oh
yes, I had never seen it before. So
we're honored.
I kind of wanted to see it, but it's just one of those movies that, I just never got around to seeing. Like, I knew the premise. I saw the preview, and I was like, spy or secret agent, or I should say FBI agent being sent into a beauty pageant. Brilliant idea. That's a very, very funny idea. I want to find out more about what's going on here. And, I just don't get to see every movie sometimes, and I just never got around to it at the rental store back then and since then. And so I was really glad to come to it now. It is very funny. I think there's some things in here as coming to it in 2023. I think some of the writing things might be handled a little bit differently today, but I definitely am seeing your reaction to it, which is important to see how it resonated with people at the time. And if you got it, at the right time, and clearly you both did, and the movie imprints on you and helps shape your comedic sense and matters that much to you, that's awesome. And I liked it, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with somebody who's new to it because much of it did work. I thought this was a funny movie, and I think this is one of those. I love Sandra Bullock, and I think she's got good range. And sometimes we think of her as being like Gravity. That's a very serious role, or Speed. But I think Miss Congeniality or The Heat just shows that she can be very funny as well. So
yes.
And we may be talking about this later, but like she and Benjamin Bratt did all their own stunts in this film too. So like She can hold up with the physical, like action, speed.
Mm-hmm.
She can do the drama. She can do the comedy. What can't she do, guys?
Well, I was going to say this movie is like a vehicle for Sandra Bullock. I don't think this
Mhm.
movie works without somebody else in her in the spot that she has. She has the charisma, she has the toughness, she has the humor, she has the timing. Some of the supporting cast around is really good, some of it's not. But this movie works on the back of Sandra Bullock. She's awesome, and this movie clearly had a lot of money to work with. But I think whatever they paid her was every bit of worth it, because that's why you have a movie. That's probably why we're talking about it today. Now, if you don't want this movie spoiled, and I didn't want it spoiled for me, so we will be back after these messages. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. Check it out. It is very funny. It is worth checking out. And we'll be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments, too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
We're back. And for those of you who haven't seen this movie, this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. So, Lizzy, for those who haven't seen Miss Congeniality since 2000, do you want to refresh people's memories?
Yes. Grace Hart is a hard-headed, rough-around-the-edges FBI agent who is known amongst her peers as a homely screw-up that cannot follow orders. Her office is currently fighting against time to find a domestic terrorist, the Citizen, who has threatened his next attack to be at the Miss United States pageant. The Bureau is beyond desperate for an undercover agent as a pageant contestant, and Grace needs to rehabilitate her reputation among her peers. Grace, now going by Gracie Lou Freebush, is turning heads, especially with Eric, her co-agent. Gracie, once so reluctant to cohabitate with pageant ladies, is now finding that these women have a sisterhood and a bond that is unlike anything she has ever experienced. For the first time, she has friends and something to fight for beyond her job assignments. While on a girl talk excursion, she discovers the showrunner, Kathy, is being fired, and her assistant, Frank, is actually her delinquent son. Before Grace can report back to her team, they let her know that they have caught the Citizen and the job is over. Gracie is once again set on following her instincts and follows the lead of Kathy, certain that she is acting as a copycat. Back at the competition, Gracie is a runner-up in the pageant, but not without blowing her cover, causing a huge scene, but all while her theory proves correct and she saves the pageant. Afterwards, Eric confesses his newfound attraction to Gracie. They share a kiss, and the ladies crown her Miss Congeniality.
Well done, well done. So, Allie, you said you were a fan of pageants. This movie both pokes fun at, but ends up coming back to kind of defend it and say, like, hey, we like what we like, and it's okay to like this. It kind of initially starts off poking fun at, like, I don't know who would ever do this misogynistic kind of activity or whatever. There's an arc there to watch this tough woman entering the world of pageantry. Is this a rewarding thing as somebody who is a fan of pageants?
Yeah, so if I geek out too much, just roll with me for a second. And it's not always a beauty pageant. It can be a scholarship program, and I'll tell you why. The Miss United States is a fictional pageant. In the United States, there are two main pageant circuits. You have the Miss USA organization, which is affiliated with the past president of the United States. We're not going to talk politics, but Trump organization, Miss USA. That is a beauty pageant modeling competition. There are no educational requirements. It doesn't give out scholarship money. It is a modeling competition. And I think that's what people normally think of when they think of beauty pageants. They think of just like pretty people who can walk and look good in bathing suits. What I think Miss United States is built off of is Miss America. So the Miss America organization truly is a scholarship program. And I'm like Team Miss America all the way. So the only prizes you get are scholarship money. You have to have a platform that you raise money for and that you've been involved with for years and years and years. You have to do community service. You have to have a talent, which like the talents that these people have are like they've been playing the piano for 20 years, right? Very long time, very deep with talent. And they got to be smart. Like there are past Miss Americas who have been chemists and like gone on to be doctors and lawyers and all these things. And it's because of the Miss America organization that they're able to do these things. They're able to pay for law school and become, the influential citizens that they aspire to be.
So there's no talent in one of them?
There's no talent in Miss USA.
Okay. I was imagining if it was just talentless talent, like paddleball or something like that. Watch me.
Their talent is converting. No, I'm just kidding. I was going to say converting oxygen into carbon dioxide. They're very smart women too, I'm sure. But like the tenets of the pageants are very different.
Got it.
And there's nothing wrong with both. We should celebrate beauty. We should celebrate brains and grace and everything like that. But they're two very different things. And I think what this movie does so well is really address that at the beginning of like the misconceptions of it and then dovetail into what it really is, which is, America's future female leaders in these pageants. So that's what I'll say. I have known 3 Miss New Yorks. I've known 1 Miss America, went to college with them. Some of the most brilliant people you'll ever meet.
Wow. And I even read that they don't even do a swimsuit competition anymore in Miss America.
That's pretty recent. They used to, but talent is huge. They get multiple on stage questions and things like that, but it's not for the faint of heart.
Allie, which one was Miss South Carolina where she was talking about maps?
That is Miss Teen USA, which
okay.
if you don't know what Lizzie's talking about, look it up. It is hilarious.
You're welcome.
Some people don't have maps in like the Asia and America, and Asia and Africa.
Oh man, I remember Jimmy Kimmel took like a late night, like he was diagramming out the grammar of it, and he was defending it in a very ridiculous sort of way. He's like, see, yeah, it's true. A lot of people don't have maps. She's right about that. It is so funny. And I love these blunders that the internet gives us sometimes, like the Boom Goes the Dynamite guy who's just like.
Oh, I went to college with Boom Goes the Dynamite guy.
Really? Well,
Ball State. It's the place of Miss Americas and Boom Goes the Dynamite guy.
That is amazing. But you like these people in a way, and you watch them struggling. You're not laughing at them. We're human beings. We've all screwed up massively, whether it's just giving a speech in front of your class, and so you're rooting for them to get back on track, and it doesn't work at all. They get worse off track, and there's this nature of like you're rooting for the come on, you'll get this. No. So. Those are wonderful human moments when that happens. So I think just one of the things that's amazing is to see the shoes on the other foot. Somebody who's just really pretty and may not have a lot going on under the hood, trying to be shoved in a position and, let's watch this vapid, airhead stumble through a situation and fish out of water kind of thing. Well, this time it takes somebody who thinks that they've got everything. They've got all the skills, like I can fight, I can do all this stuff. I'm really awesome in this world. She's tough. And she has to enter a world that she quite honestly looks down upon. And like that is a very funny thing to watch her kind of pushed into this and to watch her, realize how hard this is. And in the process, the people that she looked down upon in a very condescending manner, she ended up liking. So I think a great comedy, it doesn't have to. We covered Take the Money and Run. There's no heart in that movie at all. It's just funny. You can get by on just being funny, but there's something that is a safer formula for me is if you have this warmth, like a Home Alone. Just you sit there and you're like, my heart feels good. There's a feeling of this feels good to watch. And this movie has that. I just really thought that this movie feels good to watch.
Mm-hmm. It's also very like women supporting women, which I think in films a lot of times and in life people pit women against women, and this is really about like embracing your womanhood and in the sisterhood in that, right? And you know, there's some people, that girl from Texas, Mary Jo, not everybody likes Mary Jo all
Yes.
the time. But nobody is like made fun of or like looked down on, really. Maybe with the exception of answering the question about the perfect date, which we'll come to.
Yes, absolutely.
Other
No,
than
I
that, though,
agree.
like it's about genuine positive feminine relationships.
That's
I
an interesting
totally
point.
agree.
Lizzy,
I
is like
totally
there an
agree.
example of like where that's not happening? Or like is this movie turning the corner whereas other movies weren't doing this?
You mean is where it's not happening, where there's not a sense of sisterhood,
Yeah, like
or
is this a movie that's so like a change of direction for movies? Like because you're talking about it being women supporting women. Is that not what Hollywood's putting out there in 2000 typically? Or
I think so there's a really awesome movie I think that probably came out maybe 10 years before. It's called Drop Dead Gorgeous. I'm sure is like a pageant girly alley that you had seen that movie as well, like Denise Richards and Kristen Dunst. And it was kind of like Election meets Miss Congeniality, possibly, in the sense of the fact that it's supposed to be a true satire of pageants as opposed to like an actually scripted movie with a plot and all of that. Like you're supposed to be interviewing all of these different pageant queens and you watch how they, well, not all of them, but some of them like truly look to sabotage their competition. And I think at that particular time in the zeitgeist, like that was really prevalent. Like I think this kind of like women supporting women movement, I feel very much that we're still in. But when I was growing up, I didn't feel that very much. Like I think that there seemed to be this idea that there was only room for one at the top. And now we know what we know of there's plenty of space for everyone and that all ships rise with the same tide. But I think at that particular time, this was probably the first movie where I really saw true sisterhood. The scene that stands out the most to me in this, that as an example, is this is towards the end. So at this point, the FBI has gone home. They've completely detached from her project. She is still super convinced that it's Kathy. And Vic, who is played by Michael Caine, absolute genius part of this movie. He is the pageant consultant, all the hair and makeup guy. He has left as well. And so she shows up and she's rumbling through her makeup kit and she's like, okay, and she's late. She's like, which one of these is lipstick? And the ladies hear her. And like, that would have been a perfect time for all of the women to be like, look at this, like, what the heck, Jersey? Like, you know what? I'm just going to let you fall on your face. Cause like, this is really about, it's a competition. And if I win, then, you know, if you can't figure out how to get your look together, like that only really benefits me at the end and just gets rid of one extra person in the competition. But that's not what happens. What happens is they rally around her and they help her put her makeup on. And I love that scene. And to me, that's like the biggest example of sisterhood, of like it's a competition, yet they recognize that their sister needs help. And so they put the competition aside and they work together to get her face on.
There's a bunch of that, right? Like when she gives Cheryl the flaming batons to like
Yes.
jazz up her routine, or they go out and they eat pizza and have beer, and it's just like, oh.
Pizza's powerful. If you want people
There's
to like
nothing
you,
like pizza beside an indoor pool.
yeah, I mean,
So
that clearly that helped her out. Without the pizza, she doesn't have that help.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's just a lot of really wonderful scenes. And I think, you know, she, like you were saying, Grace thinks she's got it all figured out. I really think this movie is more of like, there's the whole Eric love story that kind of makes it like romantic, I suppose. But I think this movie is really more about her learning a lesson in sisterhood, more so than her finding Eric in anything else. It's like she finds her voice, and she finds her voice through other women kind of lifting her up, because before they make it a point to show her life before all of this. You know, she goes home from that botched job. She like takes a microwave dinner, tosses it in, and then just, like does like the
totally annihilates it with a fork first.
She's rough. She's rough in everything she does.
Yes. And then she just
like, stick that spoon in her microwave too. I'm like, geez, girl.
She just goes out her punching bag all night long. Like she really doesn't have a life. And she even admits it. She's like, I'm in the job. And so I think that this movie, like by the end of it, she's transformed and she probably owns a brush now and is like beautiful. But it's really more about the fact that like she actually has realized like when you open your life up to having like fellowship with other women, like beautiful things can happen when you allow yourself to be loved and love others. It's an awesome way to transform life.
Yeah. And maybe as an adult, it hits harder even because making female friends as an adult is terrifying.
Yes, agreed. I agree. That the friendship part didn't hit me as a kid. I was kind of more into like you want
The
to
romance.
love me, you want to smooch me. Like I was more into that as a kid. But I feel like now I totally agree. Like I almost think like Eric is disposable. I think that but I feel like the sisterhood, like her and Cheryl, like in particular, like I just absolutely love Cheryl so much, and like their friendship, and just I love it. I think that's really what the movie's about.
I think that those are definitely the strongest points of the friendships and the internal growth of finding out, it's fish out of water, but finding out these people that you don't like very much, or you just, like I said, you look down on, and then you end up realizing so often your life is enriched by being around people who are not like you. And they've given you a chance to look outside of your world. And I'm with you. I think they paint a fairly, I wouldn't say sad necessarily, but there's problems in the world that she inhabits. They show that this is not a fun place for a woman to inhabit necessarily. Like, I mean, people are in the bureau. I don't know if this is accurate for the time period. It certainly seems like you'd be racking up sexual harassment cases and stuff super fast. But there's again, this locker room talk culture, if you will, or like this, and she has to just kind of play within the system. The boss isn't going to fix it and say like, hey, we're not doing that here. The intermediate people in power are definitely encouraging it, and so I just think it's one of those things where at this point, if this were written later, again, say like the Barbie movie or something like that, is aggressively challenging status quo. She is accepting and finding out the growth within herself. She doesn't necessarily come back and challenge the system that she's within to change necessarily. And I think if this movie's made later, that is something that probably would be done differently. Eric's character is not very nice. He's homophobic. He's incredibly shallow. He hits on every woman he sees. And at no point does he really have a character arc to change his behavior. He's just in the pool looking amazing and, telling her that, like, I actually like you as your personality. It's like that came out of left
But you only
field.
say that after she's gorgeous.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And there's no humbling of him. There's no realizing, oh, I liked you this whole time, or I really needed you as a partner. We really complete each other, or I'm falling on my face without you, or I'm not actually, leading very well, and you have a lot of the skills that I need, and I really respect you. I almost think if this hadn't gone the romantic way, but just a symbiotic partner, a true respecting platonic work relationship that said, you're my partner and I need you, and you bring so much to the table that I don't have, and I'm sorry I treated you that way. I think some of that might have been a better direction to go. And again, this movie's 2000. We're coming from, every time we do a movie from a different era, it is a time capsule. If you want to go back and watch the movie we did 9 to 5, done in the 70s, women in the workplace, I mean, that does not look fun to be. does not look like a fun environment for a female worker to be in. And so things have changed since the 70s at this point. But it just, again, today we're already 23 years past this. There are some things that are starting to sit there and go like, oh, yeah, that wouldn't fly today. And that's an interesting passage of time sort of thing. But I'm with you.
Well, not to spoil number 2, the Armed and Fabulous, but Eric and Gracie Lou do not make it. Not surprising.
I don't think he really deserves her. I kind of am glad to hear that.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
Even just the way he asks her out. Like, so in the beginning, like, you're absolutely right. Like, she's so far superior than him. He gets his first job assignment And he's like, so what do we do? And she's like, well, the first thing that you're going to want to do is contact the Miss United States pageant to make sure that you have their cooperation. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, we should do that.
We should do that. And like,
I'm really
and then you
thinking
should
now.
contact like the local authorities there so that they don't feel like we're stealing their thunder. Oh, yep, let's do that too. So like they definitely try to establish like she is superior to him in the job. And then when he asks her out on a date, he's like, let's go grab dinner, just like a casual dinner. No big deal. I mean, if we happen to have sex afterwards, then like, so be it. And I just feel like, what kind of, if someone asked me out like that, it was like, let's go grab dinner. And if like we happen to have sex afterwards, I'd be like, that's not an invitation that I am enticed by. Like, that's
Like, has that ever worked in the history of
It's weird
wine?
because it sends a message that, oh, I know how to be pretty now, and because I'm pretty enough, I can have this very handsome man. And he has to have no qualifications to earn my affections other than just be really handsome. So what can be sexual harassment from somebody else is not if he's just really good looking. And, I mean, he is, and it just works out for him in this movie. But I just felt like that she's too smart for that,
Agreed. Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
So I don't want to belittle it that much. I think that's a writing structure thing. I think
that in the early 2000 rom-coms era, which like those are the movies that were printing money back in the early 2000s. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yes.
10 Things I Hate About You. The catharsis at the end was always a romantic relationship. That was like, good job, woman. You landed the guy. Or good job, guy. You landed the girl. Which I think now we're much more comfortable with the resolution of self-actualization and acceptance.
That's
and
fair.
Self-love, right? Like, I think it's just a time machine that's gone 22 years. And I agree. If I were to go back and produce this movie again, I would have been like, she's fine on her own.
Yeah.
Totally.
She doesn't even need a guy from the side. Like,
So it is.
she's Miss Congeniality.
So it is a
that's
pivot.
right.
It's a pivot then. So like if this movie's made in the 80s, it's definitely going to be way worse in terms of like, I remember I used to love the movie Breakfast Club and I still do. But there's something that really bothered me about it was after, Ali Sheedy's character is given a makeover by Molly Ringwald. Now she's pretty and you can have the wrestler.
So pretty.
Exactly.
All they have to do is take off their glasses and put down their ponytail and they're beautiful.
No, and makeup and put a white shirt on instead of a black shirt, which is terrible. Emilio Estevez should have just liked her as this art chick, this goth art chick or whatever, and that would have been so much more powerful about their bond and their connection that they were making. And so this, in some ways, is transitioning from that. And I even remember when we covered that movie, you just have to do that. People love the ugly duckling story. You have to do that.
Yes.
And so we're transitioning from there to what we just talked about before. So I think it's really important not to criticize it for that, but to just say this is a time capsule. These things are ebb and flow. There's push and pull, and there's these changes, and this is where we were in 2000. And that also goes for homosexuality is used at times in a humorous way. I love it when Eric doesn't feel comfortable with it, and Michael Caine. And so he says FBI agent, and gets Michael Caine through the gate. And then 2 seconds later, people know who Michael Caine's guy is. Like, you can go anywhere in the backstage you want because you're Michael Caine's character. You're the pageant coach. And he said, don't worry, he's with me. and he's like, come along, Muffin. And like the guy's like, ugh, like that's funny. But then there were other times where, again, Eric just seemed mean. And that's just, that shows that we're in this time change. So it's interesting how things are normally when we cover this, I got to say some things are timeless. This shows a lot of social dynamics that I think are really interesting to look back on in 2000.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah.
What are some of the things that just make you laugh, Allie?
Number one, things that make me laugh is the whole her transformation scene where she's getting her eyebrows waxed and her bikini waxed and all these things. That's just like such iconic comedy to me because like being a woman, that stuff sucks, and I think it like leans into that. The moment, another one that I really remember and I still think it's so funny is when Cheryl makes her hot chocolate.
Yes.
Just, it's hot.
They didn't even give me a chance to say non-fat.
Like that always makes me laugh when she's playing those glasses, like that being her talent. I think they're trying to make fun of like, is anything really a talent that they do? But that's great. But there's so many great lines in this movie. the subtlety of especially the relationship between Vic and Grace, I think is really funny at times.
Yes.
She's pulling donuts out of her boobs and they're fun. It's funny.
Constantly.
Guns out of her dress.
Guns and she's got stuff everywhere. And still he makes her eat celery. I find that the most upsetting part is when he takes her donut and gives her celery. I'm like,
it's so
that's
bad.
so rude. Those are some of the things that make me laugh. I think the hot chocolate scene where she spits it out and she goes, "Oh, it's hot." Like that's so great.
Lizzy, what about you? What are some of these things that just make you get a big smile on your face and make you laugh here?
The funniest scene for me, and this is like superlative adjacent, so I'll still have something for like favorite quote that's not this, but this is what I like out loud cackled when I was, like I said, I'm walking this on the treadmill, where they're at their girl talk. It's like they're getting pizza and beer, and now they're at that cool like little painting place, which I really would love to experience, by the way. Like that just looks so much fun, like the little tubey shots and the paint drumming, everything. And Grace is trying to pull out of Cheryl if she's ever committed a crime, because at this point they know that at one point she had been involved in some kind of protest at her college. And so because of that being on her record, she's starting to kind of align with a potential profile. And now they're looking at her as a suspect. So they're trying to pull it out of her. She's like, hey, like we're having so much fun that it should be illegal. Speaking of illegal, have you ever like committed a crime? And Cheryl's like, Yes, I have. I stole red underwear from the department store. My mother wouldn't let me buy them. She said they were Satan. These panties. I can't even finish her without laughing. But just, it's really what, like the cadence in her voice is really what does it for me. Is because
Miss Rhode Island is very funny.
She is so innocent and docile and like uninhibited.
I'm not going to do something lame like wave batons.
Yes, like she's just
like she makes a puppy face.
Oh my gosh, like I just adore her character, and that whole scene, just the way that she delivers it is amazing, and it really, really, really tickled me. I'd have to say that, and like Ali said, there's just the dynamic between Vic and Grace where she's in their very first meeting, and she's like eating a steak, like so, like tell me about this pageant stuff, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Line.
Yeah, like, okay, I won't say it, then I'll save it. But that's like
He's great.
That's a really funny one. That one I remember got my parents when they watched it.
She's eating steak and like a T-bone and spaghetti, and I remember thinking, like,
very weird.
Do you eat steak and spaghetti together?
No. There's no variation.
I kind of want to now.
Nobody said you can't.
I like the tomato sauce, like the spaghetti sauce with steak.
So do you eat hamburger in your spaghetti?
Yeah.
I guess you do. I mean, I guess that makes it. I guess that's the point. I'm just more of like
you're cutting out the middleman. You're cutting out the processor.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess it just makes it that much
easier. Eat the steak and sketty. You got it.
So, Sandra Bullock. We talked about how this movie survives on her back. I do want to check out some of these other cast members. Matt Dillon was originally cast, or Hugh Jackman, who had not been Wolverine yet, and he had not been in Swordfish yet. Could have been Eric. I don't know. I think we talked about Eric's more of an issue of writing. I don't know that either of these guys is going to change it as much. But Allie, do you like Hugh Jackman or Matt Dillon stepping in for Benjamin Bratt here?
So, yeah, I've read that too. Matt Dillon, to me, I don't know. No offense, Matt Dillon, if you listen to this podcast, but like
he's a big fan.
I'm not a big fan. Like
No.
I just have so many visceral memories of him grossing me out and Something About Mary that like I just can't suspend my disbelief on that for a little bit.
He's gross.
Now,
He's
Hugh
arrogant.
Jackman is interesting. I almost find him too endearing. I think they needed to find somebody that was less likable.
Okay, those are fair
because
comments.
this is like Hugh Jackman pre-Wolverine. This is more like when he was in Kate and Leopold. Amazing film.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Like total smash. Hugh Jackman and Kate and Leopold. Great movie. But like he was such a likable guy in that era. In the romantic comedies. So I think, Benjamin Bratt, he is a smoke show. and he's not like generally likable though. Like you wouldn't look at him and be like, he looks like a super nice dude. So I
That's
think he
part of
did
his
a
character,
fine
though.
job. I think his flaw was just, again, in the writing and character direction for him.
Candice Bergen was a great villain, by the way. She was just
Yes.
it's her from a million
Yes.
miles away, but it doesn't matter. That's
love
the
her.
important thing. Like you're like, well, that's the villain as soon as you see her. But that's not the point in a comedy. It's not that, ooh, this is a surprise. It's that it's as funny as it can be. And I think her whole I guess jealousy towards being fired and stuff. I mean, again, I thought more Candice Bergen is working for me. Like watching her become unhinged as she goes through this. And they could have played up the creepy dynamic with her creepy son even more, I thought. So
yeah, and this was like, I remember this too, because she played Murphy Brown in the 90s. Another show I probably shouldn't have watched, but my parents watched it, and so they made me watch Murphy Brown when I was a kid. But she hadn't done anything in a while, I think, before Miss Congeniality. Like it was one of her first movies after Murphy Brown, so it was like, oh, Murphy Brown's in it. Like that's kind of cool because it was close enough to that time period. But you youngins that listen to this might not know what Murphy Brown is. Look it up.
So I like that Sandra Bullock intentionally didn't take part of dance rehearsals, so she would be out of sync with everybody else. And I love that whenever Michael Caine and she go back and forth, she jabs at him too. You know, like that's a very confident man. Like, or like, you know, like I mean, this banter that she hands back to him is good, and it's interesting that she fostered that off camera as well. Whenever Michael Caine would mess up a line, and you know, she would look at the camera, like, you know, as they were cutting up, and be like, that's it. Take his Oscar away. Take this man's statue away from him. And she looks funny off camera doing all this. So I think Benjamin Bratt said that there's a lot of improv, and then one of the beauties of doing a comedy is that you get to add all this in there. And so Donald Petrie's allowing the actors to come into the roles and what they're doing. So I think that's part of the group, and you have a very talented group of people playing off of each other. You know, Michael Caine said that his wife was a beauty Miss World contestant. I think she came in third place or something. And
different
Miss
affiliation.
World. Yes.
Miss World.
And I think it was funny when he said, he's like, many years ago, my wife was in a beauty pageant. Well, not that many years ago. Sorry, sugar. like as if, like you know, as if I didn't mean to say you're old. So, but he said that she gave him all these like pageant tricks and stuff like that, since he was supposed to be the pageant guru, and he brought that into his performance. So we talked a lot about this kind of dynamic though, and like what they're doing here in the improv. Lizzy, Donald Petrie is the same guy who did Mystic Pizza that you covered earlier. What is his secret sauce here that makes this all so fun as a director?
I feel like he also, I mean, Mystic Pizza is like a perfect example of this too. I feel like he gets it right when he understands that the story is nothing without the relationships. So like really, truly, the movie is going to be about the relationships. And, you know, you've got, yes, like you were saying earlier, you know, what draws you in and pulls you in is this idea of like FBI agent turned beauty queen. But what really gets you to stay, what makes you fall in love with the movie, is just the character development. You root for her so much, and then you root for the other pageant girls, and you just watch this sisterhood form, and it's so enjoyable to watch. And on top of it, it's so funny, but there's so much heart there too. And I think he gets it. I think he just understands that all of the nuance and all of the layers of that is really what it takes. It's like that perfect recipe to make a film that people are going to want to come back and see. And like the same to be said about Mystic Pizza. You know, it's like these three sisters, and like, yeah, like it's ridiculous and silly and funny, but at the end of the day, like it's really about the bond of the family. And it's I don't know, he gets the character development aspect with his films, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. This concept had been done before. Like it's a TV trope apparently. Like the Bionic Woman's done it. Wonder Woman has done this. Beauty on Parade, Charlie's Angels. Like the secret agent being put into a beauty pageant had been done several times, particularly in the 70s. But I think this is where it found its most success. And I think obviously Sandra Bullock's a big part of that. But as you pointed out, Donald Petrie being able to find the human dynamic and to give you the feels with the laughs is a big part of that. Allie, in terms of the storytelling, this is a long comedy movie. Like it's well over the 90-minute mark. It's to the 2-hour minute mark. Is it too long? Does it maintain its energy that's going through here?
I typically have a very short attention span. That's why I like TV.
Mhm.
I'm more of the 21-minute comedy, right? With 30 minutes with commercials, 21 minutes. I think there are some parts, I don't think anything's superfluous, and I don't think anything is being overly belabored. I think back to the point, like, could you have tightened it up a little bit? Could this film have been tightened up a bit? Maybe, like, do we need so many of the citizen scenes where he's like putting a bomb on a watermelon and stuff like that? Like, maybe not. Do we need to spend as much time, again, we've talked about this, on the relationship? I think you could cut that plot line, and it wouldn't hurt anything. But it doesn't seem overly long. I think the pace of the movie's good. I can't think of like a big lull, but again, I'm such a fan of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, they make a big investment that I don't know every movie would. So she
Yeah.
has the failed mission, but then before she is deployed, I think you're probably past 40 minutes before she gets her makeover. Like they take a long time to say, they take a long time setting the stage. I'm okay with that. I'm just I'm throwing it out there. Most comedies, certainly made today, would be pressured to go through that faster. Petrie's giving that time to show that this world that she's in, I think that's where it's probably going to get cut out of. I mean, I would hate to take it out of the pageant contestants, like the behind the scenes, like Sandra Bullock, engaging and finding friendship. I would hate to cut any of that stuff when they go out and stuff like that. In fact, if anything, I wanted more of that. So I'm okay with it, but it is long for a comedy, and I just wanted to see. Clearly, you like. What about you, Lizzy? Like, do you feel like it has good pace, it holds through, and it justifies its 2-hour run?
Yeah, I mean, I know Dustin loves a tight 90, and
does.
I agree with him. Like, I feel like sometimes I feel like there's so much that could be cut, but I actually appreciate all of the context, because you're right. I mean, really, the whole first half of the movie is just laying down the groundwork, and then the second is just watching that all unfold. But I enjoy the context because I don't think that we would have the same softness in our hearts for Grace and just the journey that she goes on if we didn't understand where she came from before. So I really appreciate the background context, and I'm with Allie that, like, there's certain things that they could definitely cut out for sure. They don't need the Eric thing. They could shave off some fat, but all in all, like, I love this movie so much. I just don't mind it. Like, for me, it works.
And I think the one thing that I was surprised to see watching it again, not surprised to see, but a lot of pageant films don't show the preliminary process of the pageant, which, like,
Yes.
again, pageant facts, it's not just the night of the show. There are preliminaries that help you get to the final 15 or final 10, whatever, that take days and days and days. And everybody gets to do their talent. Everybody gets to do their evening gown. But they showed that. And I thought that, was that extra? Did you need all the prelim scenes? Maybe, maybe not. I think you had to establish the prelim. In my mind, the purpose of it was more to establish Cheryl and be like a redemption point for Cheryl, because she does so poorly in the preliminaries.
Yes, agreed. It's like a nice arc. Yeah.
I'm surprised she made the top 10
Well, she
based
had
on
to
her
remember,
preliminary
like,
performance.
she was fixed. Like, Candice Bergen didn't want to allow her to get that far into it, but they rigged it.
Well, no, that Cheryl.
Oh,
Miss Rhode Island.
Miss Rhode Island.
She had a very poor performance.
That's true. Yeah.
She gave a terrible answer.
I'll be honest with you.
And her batons weren't on fire.
It's a 2-hour movie. I was willing to inject more characters and side characters that, that I would think that there'd be more side characters. You have 50 states to work with. We only see like five other contestants, and that's only 10% of the contestants. There are small things, there are small clips, and like I think you could inject moments or montages of her engaging with other ones, perhaps favorably, perhaps unfavorably, but I just think that there's a chance to use more structure of all of this stuff that's going on. Yes, you have to cast more actresses. Yes, that's more work as a casting department. But to your point, it's a pageant. It's big. I mean, they locked in on 5 people, and they didn't lock in on them so much where it's just like, I love all 5 of these people. You love Miss Rhode Island, but you don't connect with any of them other in such a fact that you said we're going to narrow it down to here. So if you're going to lightly develop 5, expand it, because there's more potential for other things and other faux pas and stuff. So, and it involves Mel Brooks kind of like, like we're going to be fast. We're going to layer stuff in. Stuff's going to be going on behind us. The funny girl from Nebraska is doing something else. And, there has to be different layers going on. That's hard to arrange and hard to write for, but it's gold when it happens. I want to say when it's 2 hours long, though, it's worth it when you have the feels. If you're just funny, we covered Caddyshack a few weeks ago. One of my favorite movies of all time. I love it. It's hilarious, but it's 90 minutes. There's no heart. It's like sketches that are written, and like they're vignettes. Same thing, Blazing Saddles, we covered it earlier. It's a very, very funny movie, but it doesn't make you feel in your heart like, I mentioned earlier, this movie makes you feel good, makes you go, like I feel better now that I saw this. That's when a comedy can go 2 hours. Planes, Trains, Automobiles. You can go 2 hours. You've warmed my heart and you've made me laugh. And I think that, that's the defining factor of, when you do that, which is why Judd Apatow can get away with writing a 2.5 hour long comedy movie This Is 40, because we feel so many things in that 2.5 hours. Unless it's funny people, in which case it's not funny and it's too long and it's not very good.
That was depressing. That was a hard movie to watch.
I'll never watch it.
I've never seen that film. I will not add it to my list.
Don't do it.
Thank you.
Watch the other Judd Apatow movies. You just talked about like how you like Trainwrecked earlier and stuff. I mean, Apatow's
I
awesome.
love This Is 40. My husband and I are like, it's our lives. And whenever we have cupcakes, I have to yell at him, stop eating cupcakes, because which is from that movie.
Yes.
Great film.
But Petrie needed a hit here. He hadn't had a lot of success. He'd gotten from like The Favor, Country Estates, Richie Rich, The Associate. Like this was 7 movies back since he had a profitable movie with Grumpy Old Men. So he needed this movie, and it kind of kickstarted him for the rest of his. I guess after this, he gets How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which we covered earlier, a long time ago, and then he kind of peters out again. So it's interesting. Petrie kind of rides this roller coaster. It's interesting. This was lightning for him. And like, it was a hit when he needed it. So I'm with you, Lizzy. I don't know why he has it sometimes, and then sometimes he does This Is Mooseport with Ray Romano. So it's sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But he seems to nail the characters here.
Yes, agreed.
I'm going to say part of his success might be when he comes across a brilliant actor like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in Grumpy Old Men, or Julia Roberts. I was going to say Julia.
Yes, sorry.
I was going to say Julia Child. That's not right. Julia Roberts was in Mystic Pizza. The whole cast was talented in Mystic Pizza. And here you have Sandra Bullock, Michael Caine, just great cast. So maybe it's the actors with Donald Petrie, but he certainly supports them when they're here. Allie, is this world of the pageant glam enough? I wasn't sure. We have a San Antonio setting. Obviously, the bureau setting is supposed to be fairly banal and bland, but I kept thinking, is this lavish enough? I feel like it should be ritzier. And I mean, when I see the budget on this movie, I would have thought that we would have been having something a little more extravagant and luxurious. Or is it just these things are held in San Antonio and this feels about right?
So typically not San Antonio. They don't remember the Alamo when it comes to pageant locations. It's more often in Las Vegas. Miss USA is historically in Atlantic City, which, San Antonio might be nicer than Atlantic City. So that might be a glow up. But I think what they were trying to do is just establish like this the kind of like random city that's rooted in this fictitious pageant's heritage. That's what I was getting for it. In terms of like the contest itself, it seemed to be on par with the tastefulness of something like Miss America, like kind of minimal in terms of set design and all of that. So I didn't mind that. San Antonio is a little bit of a stretch. I don't know why a pageant would be in San
I just
Antonio.
figured Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, New York,
No, it's
Vegas.
mostly like Vegas and Atlantic City are like the big
Okay.
ones. Yeah.
I don't know why I project more affluence onto the nature of the events.
Well, I mean, they are expensive. Being in pageants is one of the most expensive hobbies you
Oh,
can
I
have.
bet. I bet.
well,
expensive.
well, then it's not for me. Then you popped my bubble.
I was
but-
in pageants, a couple of pageants in my youth, so I can say that.
Okay. Did you have a talent?
I do not even want to get into it on this it's the most
Oh, come
embarrassing thing.
on.
Okay,
Have
so
to share.
you guys are on a podcast with the reigning sesquicentennial queen of the city of Austin, Indiana. That means that I was crowned the queen of the city on its 150th birthday, and I will be queen of my hometown until I am 67 years old.
What?
The
Wow.
bicentennial.
I didn't know we had royalty on the show.
Oh my goodness.
You're welcome. So I've only like dedicated a clock and been in like 2 parades, and then I moved out. I moved out of the city, out of my hometown whenever I went to college, and don't go back.
Well, I've been in
Anyway.
0 parades and dedicated 0 clocks. So
Yeah,
you're very
that's a big
accomplished, and
deal.
I'm
That's
impressed.
amazing.
Yeah,
Clock by
that is
tunnel.
very cool.
Yes. So we had an essay portion. We didn't do bathing suits. We did business wear, which was just funny.
Like Romeo and Michelle style. That's what I'm imagining.
Correct. I think I wore like a purple suit or something. I can't remember the
Yeah.
suit I wore, but I remember my talent. It was 2002, a year after 9/11, and I was also editor of my school paper, and I had written an editorial about the lack of compassion just 1 year after 9/11. Like I felt like America was like right back to where it was. Like where was the brotherhood, sisterhood that we had being Americans a year ago? And so all that to say, my talent, I was kind of an iMovie geek. And so I did a patriotic video montage to the song Where Is the Love by Justin Timberlake. And I think Will I Am. And not only that, I made the video montage, which was political commentary. But then I did a choreographed dance in front of the video montage.
I love it so
This is
much.
terrific.
It's
I love all
amazing.
of this. This is great.
I love
And-
that so much.
My final question was, what do you wish most for your future children? And number one, I should have said, I don't really want kids, but I didn't say that because I wanted to win. And I have a kid, so it ended up being fine. But I said, I wish that my children could have a more peaceful world in which to live.
World peace.
World
Oh.
peace,
World
baby.
peace.
World
But said
peace.
so much more eloquently.
Yeah,
Yes.
no wonder I won. Like,
Yes.
patriotic video montage.
You didn't want tougher penalties
Dance?
for parole violators?
I should have said that.
I love that when the audience just like sits there blankly
Yeah.
deadpan, like not reacting, and then she goes, and world peace.
World
And like
peace.
and the crowd just like, yes, that's what I want to hear.
That should have been, I don't think I would have won. Like, I just really wanted to win. That would be like me now. That's what I would have said.
I just like at the end of the very end, I really do want world peace.
Everybody does.
Yeah,
Everybody
we all
does.
do.
Justin Timberlake does in the song Where Is the Love? It's a
Timberlake.
bop.
Black Eyed Peas do, yes. Owl hit, yes.
That's the most embarrassing thing I've ever admitted that I
I
did.
think that's something to be proud of. I think
yes,
that's
not
amazing.
embarrassing. Yes.
There you go. There's a video of it somewhere. Just find my mom. She'll find it.
This is great. So, on Pod You're Afraid of the Dark, when you introduce her, you can always say, beauty pageant queen. of Austin, Indiana.
Yes. That
Reigning.
crown that was on my head for my birthday post, like that needs to be on your head. Like you need you need like a sparkly tiara.
The tiara was so teeny tiny. I
The
think
wheels are
budgets were
turning.
limited. But I have a sash. It's still at my house in my old childhood bedroom.
This
gosh.
is great.
I love it.
Well,
so
I'll have to keep it until I'm 67 whenever I come back to crown the bicentennial queen. There you go.
I love it. Oh my gosh, you're so special. I love it so much.
This is great. And I really liked how this movie had a hard time. I think it is hard. Sandra Bullock's a beautiful woman. To make her not pretty. Is it funny to see Sandra Bullock in bureau mode?
So I would never. I guess like when I think of Sandra Bullock, I don't think beauty first. I think like ability first. Like she is beautiful. In person, she probably would be the most beautiful person I'd ever seen physically in real life. I wouldn't she's not ugly, but like the transformation for me was just like, because like she's pretty already. I don't think they did a good job making her kind of unappealing, but I think it
Yeah,
was more in her behavior than in her looks.
exactly. Susie DeSoto, the costume designer, said it's hard to make pretty people
Yeah, like they
ugly.
made her hair ratty and then made her eat ice cream like a Neanderthal, and
A lot of it's in the
that was
performance.
successful. Yeah, it
A
was her
whole lot
performance.
of it
I
is
think.
in the performance. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't think the fuzzy bangs that kept getting in her way, if anything, they were even a tad bit distracting. Like you couldn't see her eyes at times and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I'm with you. I think it's amazing that, you know, short of putting like food stains on people and stuff like that, I mean, or you know, when you say like she's under makeup, I mean, it's not, I don't know, there's this they didn't steer too hard into that, and I think the unveiling later or whatever was funny because she has these moments where she still falls down. You know,
Mhm.
she's still her in that, and I think that that's funny to reinforce that like fish out of water kind of thing. I don't know. Uh, I've watching her struggle in the transformation. Like I'm gliding over here in like the streets,
Yes.
like the Midnight Cowboy like reference. I'm walking over here, like redone to I'm gliding over here. Being from New Jersey was so perfect because New
Mhm.
Jersey has like a roughness to her, and
Yes.
I'm glad that they made her from New Jersey versus I don't know somewhere from the Midwest.
Well, they had to have somebody from Jersey because of the reason she was kicked out of the pageant. Like conveniently, New Jersey
Yes.
was kicked out for appearance in a film, right?
Yes,
Right.
an adult film.
An adult film.
Yes, I love it. I think that they make her so like hyperbolic, like they try to go for all the things that would make a person ugly. But I agree, it's like Allie, you made a not another teen movie reference earlier, and I feel
She's
like it's
got
the same
glasses and a
thing.
ponytail.
Yeah, it's like not Lainey Briggs. She has glasses and a ponytail. I mean, that's kind of exactly what they did with her, where it's like her hair is just like frizzy. And she is just, it's really in like her posture and just the way she carries herself. Like, even if you had somebody that, like, that was their look, but they were kind of like a warm, loving person, I don't feel like any of those things would be alarming. It would just be like, she just has frizzy hair. Like that just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
But they make
It's
fun of her by like her boots, like Eric's date. She's like, does everybody in the force have to wear those masculine boots? It's like they try to go for the clothes because I think that that's of the time. But I think now, if that movie was made, like I don't think that they would focus so much on like the looks aspect. I think that they would really make it more of like the taming of the shrew aspect of it.
And to your point, Allie mentioned that Sandra Bullock did all of her fighting and stunts, and so did Benjamin Bratt, by the way. So she was very involved in that. But Sandra Bullock did say she humorously said the most difficult thing for her was to walk around with extra like enlarged fake breasts, stiletto heels, and that was hard for her. Action, leaping, and jumping, all of that was no problem for her. And Donald Petrie and Jack Gill, the stunt coordinator, all said she's very capable, very good at all of this physical stuff. So I don't know if that's just being humorous and funny and self-deprecating, but she really did have to do it all as an actor to be able to straddle both of these worlds and to portray somebody who was having a hard time. But to your point, she was saying that as an actress, pageantry and beauty and having this didn't come as naturally, and perhaps that plays to the role, but it conveys beautifully the feeling of the pageantry. Allie, did it nail all the things that you love about pageants?
It definitely did. I love a talent. I'm really glad that they decided to do that. I think that the only thing I question again is like and I get why they centered. We talked earlier about the 5 that they center on. Number 1, like how did Gracie make friends with like everyone in the top 5? Like they all make top 10, top 5. Like, she picked a real group of winners. Great job. I think where some of the like plot hole, if I had to have one, was like how did Cheryl make the finals? Because she wouldn't have in that situation, just based off that horrible answer that she gives. Or is it a great answer? I don't know. We'll debate that later. But it seemed to really like hold up all the parts of the pageant, the way they flow, what judges seem to look for. Like all of that to me seemed pretty good, right? So I think they did a good job capturing the scholarship program pageant environment.
Yeah. And you guys ready
Minus
to
that
have
opening choreographed dance. That was kind of weird. I don't know if anybody does choreographed dances. We actually did do one
I
in the
bought it.
Sesquicentennial pageant, but they don't anymore. I don't think they do choreographed
I
dances.
love that scene. That's like one of my favorite scenes. Like the one in a million. I remember when I was a kid, I was obsessed with that scene. I loved it so much.
the 1 in a Million song that got the Golden Globe for that. So,
Whew.
all right. Do you guys want to have some superlatives?
Yes.
All right, Allie, who's your MVP?
Can I want to go not obvious
You can.
because I like to go like a little bit left of center. One person we haven't talked about in this is William Shatner.
Yes.
He's
He
great.
makes me laugh so hard. He's just so aloof and like plays into this like clueless co-host, I think really, really, really well. And at the end, whenever like bombs are going off and he's still singing the song, I think that was really, really clever and funny to have Stan Fields like kind of be just this like doof on the side. But William Shatner just delivers it in the most like charming way. I love William Shatner. I think he's funny.
I do
He's
too.
very funny in this. Lizzy, who's your MVP?
I went with Sandra Bullock. I felt like the natural choice for me, but I just feel like this movie, just like we said before, it just doesn't work without her. I think that she is so charming and funny, and the camera loves her. Like you just can't take your eyes off of her. And I just really think that what she is able to bring to the character is what makes this movie worth watching and why you go back.
Absolutely. And I've been singing her praises all night. Sandra Bullock, my pick as well. Best
I
supporting.
mean, that would have been my pick if I were basic.
Oh,
I'm basic. All right. Well, Allie, who's your best supporting?
Oh my gosh, best supporting. I'm going to go with. So I mentioned the character earlier. I think the character of Mary Jo is very funny because she's supposed to be this not likable. Like she might be the one that has like an air of competitiveness to her, but we all know that girl, right? The Mary Jo girl, but she does have redemption in the end. She comes and helps Gracie when she needs to get ready. She becomes part of that tribe. Even though Gracie breaks her nose at the end, like she still claps for her when she wins Miss Congeniality. But I think Mary Jo is another underlooked character. So I'm gonna, I like to give it to the oddballs, and I'm gonna give my next superlative to Mary Jo, Miss Texas.
All
I
right.
love
Hometown hero.
Yeah.
I love when
absolutely.
she loses, like she gets caught, like cut from the competition. She just like shrugs her shoulders. It's like a really like blink and you miss it scene that she's just like, rather than having a graceful thing, she's absolutely shocked that she's not in the final two. And she's like, well, okay, this is what it is.
Absolutely. Lizzy, who's your best supporting?
I put Cheryl. She's just my absolute, like, to me, I think if this movie survives on the back of Sandra Bullock, I feel like so much of the heart is also delivered through Cheryl. Like she is the one that is responsible for softening Grace. I think so much more than Eric or really any of the other ladies. I feel like it's that friendship more than anything. Like the hot chocolate scene, I think like that kind of starts it. And then as they continue through their journey, just like I think she's the one that softens her heart so much, and she's so sweet and innocent. And I love her. The majority of the scenes that I enjoyed the most have Cheryl in them. So she's definitely my best supporting. She said there were Satan's panties. Oh, so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, my best supporting went to William Shatner as well.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, so just brought him right to the forefront. Great guy.
No, you nailed it. Hidden gem, Allie.
Oh, hidden gem. So the element that I'm going to go with an element on this one. And I do think that it's something that I pay attention to the things people ignore. And one of the things that I think is a hidden gem to really show, and we talked about it earlier, that Grace is kind of an animal, is the steak and spaghetti. So I'm going to give my hidden gem to the concoction meal of the steak and spaghetti and the beer.
If you try it, let us know what you think.
Because I just thought that was like, so again, they had to rely on her behavior and her meal choices to show how disgusting she was. So steak and spaghetti gets my hidden gem. People doesn't get enough credit in that movie.
Nice. Lizzy, what's your hidden gem?
Mine is, there's this dynamic between Kathy Morningside and Grace where every single time Grace answers a question with yeah, Kathy corrects her, yes. And that happens several times throughout the movie. And then towards the end, it gets flipped on its ear where she's like, this is, Kathy's getting arrested at this point. It's all getting wrapped up. She's like, you cannot take this away from me. This is my beauty pageant. She's like, hey, this is not a beauty pageant. It's a scholarship program. Kathy's, yeah. And then Grace is the one that turns it around. Yes. And that for me was a hidden gem because my mom is a true Southern belle, like born and raised in Danville, Kentucky, and all the things. And that was a huge thing for me growing up because just when we moved to Ohio, everybody said yeah, nobody said yes. And my mom, every day, that was a struggle for her, is to get us to say yes. And so when this movie came out, that was like one thing that my mom was like, see. And so it's always going to stick for me.
All right. Yeah. Mine's going to be Don Cass, the actor. He's the pageant director. So he's the guy who gets upset when things aren't going well, or, he's like, can we say lesbians on the air? And like, she's kicking his butt. All right. This guy's reactions are very funny, and I love his little spot. He's the no-name actor, and I also love it when he goes, okay, everybody, good show.
Yeah, very end.
Yeah. Recast, Allie. If you had to recast somebody else and put them in their place, who would it be?
Oh, that's one that I had to think about a lot. And I think my answer would probably be the son. His name is escaping me right now.
Frank.
What's his name? Frank.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what it is about that guy. Maybe it's because he's a redhead or something. Like, I just didn't like him. It just wasn't believable that Kathy Morningside's spawn would be that unrefined. Like, I feel like they should have leaned more into the Kathy side of things versus like the son that was too doofy to know better. If that makes sense. Like, I think they could have found somebody that like you would have believed would have been. Now William Shatner's son, I would have believed that all day. But Kathy's son, I think they could have picked somebody a little bit more elevated, a little bit better looking. All of that.
All right. Lizzy, who are you recasting?
So I chose Frank too, and I chose Seth Green to replace Frank. This was like right around the same time where Austin Powers was like a huge deal. And so, Seth Green was Seth Green was like incredibly famous from Robot Chicken, and I think Family Guy kind of came sometime afterwards, but he in his own right was already super famous, but I feel like he was kind of brought directly into the spotlight because of Austin Powers, and honestly like really had a lot of staying power. And I just think he did such a great job of playing this like whiny, ridiculous, over the top son. And I think that's what they were trying to go for with Frank. And kind of to your point, Allie, I just think it fell flat. Like, I think it would have been more enjoyable to watch if Frank was more compelling. He had his own comedic background storyline in the same vein that like Scott does in Austin Powers. So for me, it was Seth Green, swapping out one ginger for another.
All right. I like the Seth Green. My recast is going to be John DiResta. Like, he's the Agent Klonsky. And I just want to get another agent in there to add more comedy from the rest of the Bureau. I want Jason Alexander as one of the agents.
Nice.
Best shot, Allie.
Best shot. This is an easy one for me. It may relate to something a little bit later. But the shot of Grace coming out as Gracie Lou Freebush from that airport hangar in the Irv Lager bandage dress. You cannot get better than like the Mustang Sally's playing. Sandra Bullock actually played the tambourine in that cut of Mustang Sally. Fun fact. And it's slow and they like really drink in that moment. And then I think where it pivots to the moment where it speeds up and she falls down and she says the line, "Don't mess with me." Like that was just so brilliant. Like the polarization of those two moments of the beauty and like she's still Grace.
That's mine too. It's in the previews, but with good reason. Like
Yes.
I knew that was coming before I ever watched the movie, and it was very funny. So, Lizzy, what
Did
was
it
your best
still
shot?
like deliver in the moment, even though it was something that you had
Yeah,
seen?
I mean, again, I wanted to see this movie. That
Mhm.
was one of those things that I thought was funny. I mean, watching this person who's perturbed while absolutely gorgeous and very fabulous, and walking out of and just obviously not got it. Like this movie is summed up in that like little one snippet so well. That's why it's in the preview. So I do think it delivered. I mean, it's what the movie is. So, what about you, Lizzy?
We're 3 for 3. That was mine too. It's just iconic. It's you think of this movie and that particular scene where you first you have Vic and all of the people in kind of like this pinky tones, and then they just kind of part ways perfectly to make way for her to have the spotlight. And it's just everything about that moment is iconic.
Her hair's not in a ponytail anymore.
That's
It's
right.
brushed.
She's brushed her hair out.
And she's beautiful because her hair is brushed.
That's right.
Best scene, Allie.
Best scene. I'm going to go back to my previous. I was trying to look at my notes. I'm going to go back to the previous one. I think the first interaction between Cheryl and Grace. I call her Gracie after she's like beautiful for some reason. Cheryl and Gracie, where she comes into her room. What I love about that so much, it sets the tone for their relationship, where they're like the two. They interact a little bit on the bus earlier, but like it cements them as these two oddballs that like don't quite fit in for completely different reasons. And what Cheryl could have done is, okay, Gracie was kind of standoffish and like didn't really pick up what I was putting down earlier on the bus or at the luncheon. But I want to be her friend and I'm going to go try again. And it was just so endearing when she knocked on her door and she gave her apparently non-fat hot chocolate. Tastes different than, I don't know.
Doesn't sound
To
good.
me,
No,
the milk is milk. I don't. You guys didn't think we'd be talking about this on the podcast, but I don't think skim milk tastes different than 2%.
I don't know.
I actually disagree.
Every time you go from whole to 2 to 1 to skim, it gets
Whole
less
milk.
It
Who's drinking whole milk?
This girl right here.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't use whole milk for a long time, and then my son, when babies start to drink regular milk, you start them on whole milk.
Yeah, they drink whole milk.
Well, then I rediscovered how
And
good whole
Lizzy.
milk was,
And
and I was
me.
like, wow, this is really good. I used to have skim milk, and my parents used to make me drink skim milk for my meal, and I'm sitting there going like, you wouldn't have had to make me drink this if I like.
I'll get like 2%. I'll get 1%.
I don't know. Whole milk's amazing. I don't get it. You don't drink it all the time, but it's amazing.
If I have like cereal, like skim is fine.
Oh yeah,
No,
cereal. Yeah, I mean anything's good once you put cereal in it.
My family was a strict skim milk family, and I will never forget the time going over to a friend's house when they had whole milk, and it was like crack. It was just like this insane.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
This is so creamy.
I'm gonna have
I'm
to
with
like
you.
go get some whole milk.
I'm with you.
I loved it so much. I put it in my coffee. I don't like drink it plain too much, like as an adult, but I mean, I will if I'm having like a cookie or something that warrants a glass of milk. We'll do it.
Whole
So,
milk will be
whole milk all the
endorsing us
way.
now. Be like, thank you. Well, we need a
The
sponsor.
dairy farmers come
Yeah.
at us.
That's right.
Best scene for me is going to be the scene where she takes the crown and the backstage fight just goes into pandemonium. I love seeing this perfect, etiquette-filled pageantry. Everything's prim and proper. Come wrecking down with the fights. They think she's trying to take her crown. She's kicking and screaming and pulling, and just
She's like,
love it. I love it. The thing's blowing up. I mean, Shatner's like doesn't know what to do. I mean, I love it. I love it all
one.
coming down. Lizzy, did I ask you your best scene?
No, not yet.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of you. Lizzy, best scene.
My favorite scene is, I kind of already talked about it a little bit, but it's the girl talk scene. I think that is so much fun. It's like watching all of these sisters, and you see at one point like Hawaii and New York kind of go at it a little bit. There's all this like tension between some of the different girls at different points in time, but they're always able to squash it. Just kind of going along with the same sisterhood mentality. Like everybody is always able to get back to a really good place of supporting each other. But that scene in particular is like everybody is really for the first time completely getting along. And it's just, it to me felt like the full blown turning point where she was like, okay, I think that the thing that they tell you to not do while you're on the job, I imagine, as a undercover agent, is getting attached. And like you can feel like in that moment that now all of these people are her best friends, and like she's super ride or die for them. They're all going out and having that camaraderie with each other. And that was the big turning point, I think, for me. And then the Satan's panties line, just the best. And I want to go to that bar. I want to, take Tubi shots and play with like paint on a drum, and I mean that just sounds like fun to me.
It did look fun. Allie, best wardrobe or makeup moment.
Wardrobe again goes to the lilac Irv Lager bandage dress. Like I went down a rabbit hole on this, and guys, I'm not gonna lie, for Halloween 10 out of 10 gonna be Gracie Lou Freebush. I've got to do it. Because
good.
that dress was, I just remember that being everything, like
Yes,
the
agreed.
color, and like that was so fashion. And if you Google it now, Irv Lager makes bandage dresses still. Now should he be? I don't know. Like it's 20 years later. But there's so many like Reddit conversations about like, where do I get that dress? Where do I get that dress? And I think in the day, like I remember prom dresses were influenced by that.
Yes.
It was just everywhere, right? And so it's the most iconic. It may be one of the most iconic wardrobe pieces from a film of all time to me.
Nice.
That dress.
That's high praise. Lizzy, how about you?
I love the dress. We're 2 for 2 on that one. I loved the dress. To me, the big iconic dresses that I think about when I think of my favorite early 2000s rom-coms, ironically, both from the same director. I think of this purple dress and then the yellow dress. Allie's nodding her head. She got me on the same path from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. But I loved this dress. This was a huge moment for me as a kid. I feel like this is the first time outside of like Disney princesses that I can really recall like loving someone's outfit and like really being attracted to the fashion aspect of it. So the purple dress had a big impact on me, and I still love it.
I went for humor here. I went for the German water glass performance outfit.
Yes.
It's over the top. It's corny, and it's not being received well by the audience, and it's funny. And I like it when like it. So
that does bring back another great scene where Gracie's getting ready to go on for her talent, and the girls drank all the water.
Yes.
Great.
My girls got dehydrated.
Change one thing, Allie.
I think it's that going back to it, and maybe I'm just too inspired by Frozen, where I don't think that every movie needs to have a girl gets the guy to become self-aware. I just don't think that's needed in this. I think it would have stood up without that. Mm-hmm. Now, would it have been as successful in the early 2000s as a rom-com? Like, it doesn't have the rom in it if you don't have it. But what I think it could have done is it was a very influential movie with the most influential actress at the time. And I think what would that have done to cinema at the time if the takeaway was you don't need a man? Like,
it could just be a com-com.
It could be a com-com.
Yeah.
Or like a friendship com, like a friend com or something like that, right? And if they were to make it today, I think it would have a different resolution.
Lizzy, how about you?
I agree with that. That's actually almost like somewhat word for word what I put. And just in the sense that I don't think that Eric is necessary. I think that this movie is not necessarily romantic, but there is a relationship arc in this movie, but it's not between Gracie and Eric. It's between Gracie and possibly Cheryl, or Gracie and all of these women. It's just she's realizing that letting people in her life can have her, they're not going to burden her. If anything, they're going to enrich her life fuller. But she doesn't realize that through Eric. So I agree. I don't really think he's necessary. I think it would have been really cool. And I'm trying to think now, like, what's the first movie that I can really recall where that happened? I'll have to think on that, because I can't put my finger on the first movie that really didn't have that happily ever after.
I mean, 9 to 5, none of those ladies end up with their guy.
That's true. That's very true. I don't consider that, I guess, because that was like I saw that, being like so much later in life. But yeah, so I guess that they did it. They got it right, and it worked for them. Dolly Parton does not need a man.
No. And I would say my chance one thing is right with you guys. It's Eric Matthews. I don't. There's so many things you can do. You can make her, before like pining over the cute guy at the bureau, like fantasizing that you'll never get him, and then he kind of teases her throughout. And then by the time she's pretty and realizes, I don't want you anymore, and she rejects him, you can do what I've said before of just like a platonic work relationship of like, I need you, I respect you, as a work person and as a friendship level. You could do the somebody else in the bureau, like the Allen technique, as you were talking about, like if somebody else more overlooked gets her affection that is more deserving of it. There's so many things you could do with it. So there's actually there's a plethora of things you can do that are really good here.
Or he could have like said, you did this, like it was you from the beginning, right? Like, I can't believe that if the film continued to roll and we continued to see it, that Eric would have not taken credit for a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's so many things you can do there. It's not Benjamin Bratt's fault. I think it's the writing's fault. So
I agree. I think it's the writing and the pressure to live up to a trope that was very successful at the time.
True.
Yeah.
Best quote, Allie.
Oh my gosh. Whenever, and Lizzy, I'm sorry I stole it from you earlier, but I still say this to this day when people are chewing with their mouth open and trying to talk. And she says, so what's the deal with, how long have you been doing this pageant stuff anyway? And he said, I'm sorry, what was the question? I was distracted by the half-masticated cow rolling around in your wide open trap.
It's good.
And I
still
say it. Ask my husband if he's eating. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I was distracted by the half-masticated cow rolling around in your wide open trap. It's
a great line.
But tell me what the word masticated was. It sounds dirty. It's not. But yeah, I still say it. It sticks.
It's funny.
There's another line I still say, but somebody else is going to say it. So
Lizzy.
Yes. This is one where I went for the obvious quote I feel like feels like Cheryl's, but I went with one that I use all the time still. And it's from your best supporting, Allie's from Mary Jo. So in your favorite scene, the hot chocolate scene, they're together, Cheryl and Gracie, they're sharing their hot chocolate. They're like kikiing together. And she's like, I think you're definitely going to win. No, you're definitely going to win. And all of a sudden, Mary Jo, who you think is just laying there sound asleep, she pops her head open. She goes, excuse me, I'm in the middle of a REM cycle over here. And I love that so much. I like that's a part of my vernacular. Like I will, if I'm like trying to sleep, especially now with kids, like when somebody comes in, I'm just like, guys, come on. Like I need a REM cycle. And it's a hilarious line. I love it.
And why does she sleep with her face mask on?
I don't know.
She's sleeping with like a goopy face mask on, no?
To get it like in your mouth, up your nose. Like that's another funny line where she's like, just come in, my roommate's over here molding.
I know Russell, I'm big on skincare. Lizzy knows I like to like play with the skincare stuff, but I saw that and I was just like, that looks like a breeding ground for bacteria.
Yes.
Like, can you not, Mary Jo? But anyway.
Agreed.
My best quote's going to be when Gracie says, look, I know what I'm going to do. I haven't done this since high school, but it's like riding a bike. And Victor interrupts her and is like, you are not having sex up on that stage, Gracie Hart.
Not what I
Like,
had in mind.
and
funny.
she's like, I didn't know that was an option, which is super funny. But I mean, like the anger and the quickness of the
Yes.
delivery of Michael Caine and is so funny. The timing's great.
I
So
love it.
So we should talk about the other line that like
Oh yes,
is
yes. None of
iconic.
us said it. Yes,
The perfect date. Describe your perfect date.
I would say April 25th. It's not too hot.
It's not too cold.
All
All you need is a
is
light jacket.
light jacket.
And one of my best friends in high school was born on April 25th. And so
Ah,
for all time now, it's like your birthday is the perfect date.
it's
I'm-
the
25th.
I'm surprised nobody said I'm in a dress. I have hair gel in my hair. I haven't slept all night. I'm starved and I'm armed. Don't mess with
This
me.
is me. Yes,
So-
that's a good one too.
It can't compete with half masticated cow.
I did
It
think
shan't.
it when she jumped on somebody in the crowd for having a gun, but thankfully somebody later said, "Of course he had a gun. It's Texas. Everybody has a gun. My florist has a gun."
That's a gun.
And just Shatner going, "I don't have a gun."
That is one of his shining moments. I don't have a gun.
Like,
It's amazing.
He's like one of the biggest like if you think about like in the ether of people in this movie, like William Shatner is just as iconic as Sandra Bullock,
Yes.
but he took such a backseat, but like also was so good. Like, thank you for doing this movie, William Shatner. It was not beneath you. And I know that this probably catapulted him to Priceline fame. So
Agreed. I actually
Roman
really agree
Dome.
with that.
yeah, good stepping stone.
all right, we've come full circle. But before we give our ratings, Lizzy, do you want to remind us where we will soon be able to hear more from you and Allie?
Yes, yes. Coming soon. Retro Movie Roundtable listeners, you guys should be the first people to find out because we will let all of the hosts know. But Pod You Afraid of the Dark, it is an Are You Afraid of the Dark rewatch podcast with myself, Allie, and Leah. Leah has been on 2 episodes, I believe. She did Shrek and Princess Bride, and hopefully more in the future. So you guys like Leah, you love Allie. Hopefully you're not sick of me yet. And if so, go check us out.
I'll never be asked back on this show, just to be clear. I'm just kidding.
Untrue.
All right, this is the big moment on a 5-star scale, half-star intervals. Allie, what would you give this movie?
Oh God, guys. I have to do it. I have to give it a 5. And
That's
if I
allowed.
could give like 4.8, I would take 2 points off for the Eric dynamic. But like in terms of like just enjoying my freaking self in this crazy world full of terrible things, it's a 5. It's a 5 from me.
I will defend your approach to that so hard. I have so many people come on, even with movies they love, and sit there and go, "It's not perfect. I'll give it a 4." I love that you love it that much. So thank you for just saying like this movie is mine. It's a 5. So Lizzy,
It's a 5 from me.
how about you, Lizzy?
Honestly, it's a 5 for me too. I feel like for me, I don't need the movie to be perfect in order to feel that the movie is perfect. I mean, really, what is a perfect movie? Honestly, I think it's this movie is perfect escapism. I think as far as rom-coms are concerned, the Eric thing, obviously, like we've said before, I mean, we could kind of do without it, but I'm so willing to overlook it because there's so much good here. And I just ultimately have a blast when I watch it. And it is, when I think about a girl power movie, I mean, this is like one of the first ones that will always be cemented in my mind. It lives rent free. Love it.
And don't throw things at me, you two. I'm giving this a 3.5. I like it a lot and I would recommend it. I think it has moments where I sit there and go, that thing didn't land, or that thing feels like, like that thing didn't actually hold up. And so I'm coming to it having watched this in 2023 and at the age that I've come into it. So the fact that you've gotten to rewatch this as many times as you have, and it's holding up to you and it's meaning that much to you says so much. So I enjoy this movie. I would watch this again. I would recommend it. And that says a lot because there are major writing issues that I had with this, like as far as the comedy at moments, but more so like in terms of the structuring. I think it does a lot of things right. I think it messes up some things. So, but it's funny enough and it's good enough and it feels good enough to overcome all of those problems. So that's a lot of work to do. So like,
yeah, not having the nostalgia with it, I think that's a great score, having no nostalgia, because
agreed.
the nostalgia effect is high on this film for a lot of people.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's a 3.5 with love. And it's like major blemishes are keeping it down for me, but I mean, it's good and I would watch it again. So
mhm.
3.5 with love. Lizzy, do you want to help me pick a movie next time?
I do. Let's do it. Okay, so next week we're going to do something that we don't normally do. We're going to switch it up and do animated TV shows. We are a movie podcast, even when we talk TV, but we're going to go right back to the movies. So here are 3 movies based on animated TV shows. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so in option 1, the Care Bears movie from 1985. The Care Bears team up with troubled brother and sister who's just moved into a new town to help a neglected young magician's apprentice whose evil spell book caused sinister things to happen. Option number 2, Transformers the movie, 1987. The Autobots must stop a colossal planet-consuming robot after he goes after the Autobot matrix of leadership. At the same time, they must defend themselves against an all-out attack from the Decepticons. And option number 3, G.I. Joe the movie, also from 1987. The heroic G.I. Joe action force must oppose the ruthless Cobra organization that is secretly allied with the subterranean reptilian people who were their founders.
I'm going to go back and do Transformers here. I haven't seen this movie,
Nice.
so I feel like I've missed a piece of my childhood, so let's do that.
Secretly, I was hoping that you were going to choose the Care Bears movie, but we will go with Transformer. Okay. Got it.
So thank you, Allie, so much for coming. We loved having you.
Yeah, it was so fun. I would be willing to come back anytime we talk about a movie that's not the Transformers. I'm just kidding.
Well, I think you are our first beauty queen that we've had on the show. So thank
Yeah, if
you.
you ever need royalty, just hit me up.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm. It's basically like Meghan Markle being here.
It is.
Oh my
Really?
gosh.
It's her.
Yeah.
I don't know. Princess Kate's more likable though, right?
I'm not likable though, so I'm Meghan Markle. That's why I chose
Oh,
Meghan.
Oh.
Posh. That is
Lizzy is the
unreal.
Kate to my Meghan.
That is
Okay?
unreal.
All right.
Yeah. Well, anytime, guys. It's been so fun.
Thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram or Twitter at @movie_retro, and email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. Producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. All contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners, and not into our greedy little pockets. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Lizzy?
I dream of a love that even time will lie down and be still for.